Hello everyone, welcome to Mark's Movies. I'm the Movie Man. Today I want to discuss my favorite action films from the 1980s. I know I do a lot of stuff from the 80s. That was the years I was born and grew up. But obviously a lot of these movies I didn't see in the 80s. I saw most of them in the 90s, but they were released in the 80s. So this is the list. It's quite expansive. It takes over from 80 to 89. I'm doing it in order of release again. And it's also a good variety of genres. Before I start, a couple quick things. First, I tried to include as many movies as I could while also limiting myself to only one movie per director and one movie per actor. There is one glaring exception. It's at the very beginning of the list. You'll notice it pretty quickly, so you'll understand why I did it. The second one is there are 5 Bond movies that came out in the 80s. And I'm a huge Bond fan. But of all 5 Bond movies, there were only about 2 that made the cut. And neither one of them were as good as the ones I have on my list, or in my favorites at least. 3 Roger Moore, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, and A View to a Kill. And the 2 Timothy Dalton films, License to Kill and The Living Daylights. Living Daylights, License to Kill, order of release. For Your Eyes Only and The Living Daylights are my 2 favorites of those, and neither one of them were do I enjoy quite as much as the rest on the list. So, here we go. Starting with 1980, we're talking in The Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars Episode 5. That's right. This movie is everything you love in Star Wars, and they just expand on it. Irving Kershner's direction is just masterful. You get to meet Yoda. You get to meet the Emperor. There's a lot of great development of the Force, a lot of great development of the cast and the crew and the characters and the story. And you just have one of the best twists in movie history. So it definitely has to be included. 1981 saw the release of 2 films I'm going to mention. First, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Obviously, that stars Harrison Ford as well. I could not include both of those movies, let's be honest. They're both iconic, they're both amazing, and they're both 2 of my absolute favorite films, period. I especially love the Indiana Jones series and the Star Wars series, so I had to include them both. Raiders has some great moments, the don't bring a sword to a gunfight, the snakes, just all of it. And Marion is a great foil and love interest for Indy, so I do enjoy this movie a lot. It's my favorite of the 4 Indiana Jones movies that currently are out. Next, and also in 1981, is a movie by John Carpenter called Escape from New York that stars Kurt Russell as Snake Plissken, and he is a rogue former military guy who is kind of like a badass. And he's sent into this penal colony, which is what New York has become, to rescue the president who's gone down in New York. It is dark, it is funny, it is graphic at times. It is all the things you love about John Carpenter. 2 quick things about that. I'll branch off. John Carpenter would go on to be just incredible in the 80s. I mentioned 2 of his films on my horror series, They Live and The Thing. And I also mentioned Kurt Russell in The Thing. He also did Big Trouble in Little China in this decade, which is a great... I don't even know how to describe that movie. It's just a weird movie, but it's a great little movie also. Kurt Russell, who made this film in 1981, in 82 he did The Thing. He also did the last time he made a movie with Disney. He was the voice of older Copper in The Fox and the Hound. So it's kind of funny to me that he made this movie, The Thing, and that movie all around the same time. Anyway, 1982 saw the release of First Blood. This is the first in the Rambo series. And to me, it's the best of the Rambo movies. The other ones become just graphic shoot-em-ups where he's sent into some war area and just is a one-man army and kills all the people and saves the people. And, it's over the top. It gets really over the top and ridiculous by the 3rd film. But the first one is more gritty. It has a lot more to say about PTSD and how our country treats its veterans. It also has a lot of great action sequences, and one really crazy stunt where Sylvester Stallone fell off of a helicopter into a tree, where he hurt himself. Great deal, cracked some ribs. But the movie as a whole is quite engaging and interesting and thrilling for all those reasons. Next, we're going to go to 1984. This is the first Arnold Schwarzenegger on the list, the only one, and that is The Terminator. He had so many movies. He was quite prolific in the action genre in the 80s. Raw Deal, Red Heat, Commando, Running Man, but the best by far is The Terminator. And I know James Cameron did The Terminator and Aliens in this decade, and Aliens is on my horror list. For me, when it comes to action movies, this is what I'm thinking of when I think of James Cameron action movies, is the Terminator franchise. And the first one came out in 84, and it is just phenomenal. Plus, you have the great female lead. Just a fantastic performances all around. And just taking full advantage of the fact that Arnold didn't have a great didn't have a lot of vocabulary. So they used what they had for menacing effect. And I loved it. All right, next we have also in 1984, Beverly Hills Cop. Eddie Murphy at his comedic best, but it's also got a lot of great action sequences to it. It's a good mystery. You have the opening robbery gone wrong. He's there to avenge his friend. You have the investigation, him being thrown through a window. Just so many great clips, so many great action moments, and that last gun battle between the LAPD and the bad guys is still one of my favorites caught on screen. All right, we jump to 1987 now. We got two films. One, Lethal Weapon, continuing the buddy cop genre. Lethal Weapon, you got Riggs and Murtaugh, you got the great Danny Glover, and you got Mel Gibson. Anyway, this movie is such a fun, fantastic action thriller. You got a lot of great moments to it. You got Gary Busey as one of the bad guys. There's a lot of fun moments, but it once again is like a mystery similar to Beverly Hills Cop. But there is a lot more action in this one. And the bromance that forms between Riggs and Murtaugh, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's character is phenomenal. The next one, there's not a whole lot of comedy in it. It is RoboCop. It is just a lot of graphic, gratuitous violence. The movie opens with two police officers responding to a gangster and his crime spree, and they just basically just destroy his body, so that he is rebuilt a la the $6 Million Man, but this time in a full-on weaponized suit, kind of like Iron Man, honestly. But he becomes the RoboCop, and it is vulgar, it is violent, it is graphic, and it has a lot to say about gang violence in inner cities and all that, but at the same time, it is just graphic. But you can't take your eyes off of it unless it's too much, and then you can't look away. Then you have to look away, but I love it. 1988. This is the one where I'm not going to get involved in the debate, so I'm just going to say it. It's Die Hard. It is one of the first movies that Bruce Willis ever made in Hollywood. It is the first movie that Alan Rickman ever made in Hollywood. It is still one of the best movies, period. It is my favorite of the 80s. Reginald VelJohnson, the man who's always a cop, let's face it, he's Carl Winslow. He's a cop in another great action comedy called Ghostbusters back in '84. I just love the chemistry between them, the action sequences, and it's just that one-man army fighting through, and it makes it more logical and makes it seem a little more realistic than Commando or Rambo First Blood Part 2 or 3. It's much more grounded, and I love every bit of it. All right, last but not least, 1989, Tim Burton's Batman. It has to be on the list. I know everybody was upset at the casting of Michael Keaton as Batman at the time, but let's face it, he is killer. He's so great. You got Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. You've got just Jack Nicholson Jack Nicholson as the Joker. There's so many great performances. Jack Palance, Robert Wuhl. But at the end of the day, you want Batman and you want the Joker. And it gives two great performances for those two characters to come to life. And it basically kickstarts everything that we have today. all of the great superhero films that we have from Marvel and DC both owe their thanks to the fact that Tim Burton made it a little more realistic, still kept the fun, and showed a nice template that could be used for years to come. All right, well, that's my list. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below, and comment. Please comment. I want to hear what your thoughts were about these movies. If you thought they were a little too much or maybe not quite action-y enough, what you liked in this list. I already know I'm going to hear it from my siblings because my sister loves Commando and my brother loves Big Trouble in Little China. So I can only imagine what I'm going to hear from them. But other than that, please comment. I wanted to start discussions about these movies. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good day.